There's a particular kind of quiet a woman learns to recognize. He's still there. He's in the chair by the window. He answers when you speak to him. He eats the dinner you made. And still, somewhere between Tuesday and Thursday, he left. You can't point to a fight. There wasn't one. That's the part that keeps you awake. And if you're anything like the women who write to me, you've already run the list. You've gone back over the last 3 weeks, looking for the sentence you shouldn't have said. You've looked at your own face in the mirror a little longer than you used to. You've told yourself you were imagining it. Then you watched him turn his phone face down, and you knew you weren't. I want to say something before we go any further, and I want you to hear it slowly. Most of the time, when a man over 50 pulls away, he is not walking toward the door. He's hiding, and what he's hiding from is almost never what you think it is. For the next few days, we're staying right here, on relationships, on what happens between two people who have been alive long enough to carry scars they never named out loud. And I'll make you a promise, whenever we change the subject, I'll tell you first. You will never come to this channel and find a stranger. So stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you what's actually happening inside a man when he goes quiet. And I think some of it is going to explain the last 20 years of your life. In 1986, two researchers, John Gottman and Robert Levenson, built something strange at the University of Washington. They built an apartment, a real one, with a kitchen and a couch and a window. And then they invited hundreds of couples to live in it for a while, wired to heart monitors, and asked them to argue about the same things they always argued about. They were looking for the moment a marriage breaks. What they found was a number: 100 beats per minute. Once a person's heart crossed 100, the conversation was already over. It just hadn't stopped yet. The body had made its decision before the mouth caught up. Adrenaline, blood pulling away from the hands. The thinking part of the brain, the part that handles nuance and patience and picking the right word, quietly handing the microphone over to the oldest, most frightened part of the brainstem. Gottman gave it a name: flooding. And here is the number that should stay with you. 85% of the people who went silent in that room were men. 85. Sit with that a moment. The wall you've been standing in front of for years, the one that goes up in the middle of a sentence, the one that looks so much like not caring, is not a wall of coldness. It's a man whose body has gone into an emergency he has no words for, and there's a second half to it that nobody tells you. The male body takes longer to come back down. Longer. So while you're standing in the kitchen needing an answer, needing it now, needing him to just say something, anything, his system is still burning from a fire you cannot see. He isn't refusing to talk to you. He can't find the part of himself that talks. Now, why is that part so hard for him to find? Because he was 7 years old once, and somebody told him to stop crying. Maybe it was a father, maybe it was a coach, a teacher, an uncle who thought he was being kind. Maybe it was nobody in particular, just the whole weather of the time he grew up in. But the message got through. Boys of his generation were not raised to name what they felt. They were raised to carry it. And carrying is a skill. It's a real one. It built the house you're sitting in. But it has a cost that comes due late. Ask a man of that generation how he feels, and watch what he does. He'll tell you what he's going to do about it. He'll tell you the plan. because doing was the only permitted form of feeling. He learned that a man solves, a man handles it. A man does not come home and say, "I'm frightened." So follow the logic all the way down. What happens to a man like that on the day he faces something he cannot solve? He doesn't have a category for it. He has no shelf to put it on, and a feeling with nowhere to go doesn't disappear. It goes quiet. Which brings me to the thing that happens around this age that almost nobody says at the dinner table. The world stops asking him for things. For 40 years, a man is a set of functions. He's the one who drives, the one who fixes it, the one who knows a guy, the one whose signature makes it real. He is needed in 100 small, unglamorous ways, and being needed is the water he swims in, so he never once notices he's wet. And then one Friday, there's a cake in a conference room, and someone makes a short speech, and on Monday, the phone doesn't ring. Retirement, they call it. It sounds like a reward. What nobody mentions is that most men don't lose their friendships in some dramatic way. They lose them by not being in the building anymore. The friends were tied to the work. Take the work away, and the calls thin out, and then they stop. And a man who was surrounded by people for 4 decades discovers that he had colleagues, not friends, and he's 58 years old, and he doesn't know how you're supposed to make new ones. He will never say that sentence out loud, not to you, especially not to you, because underneath all of it, there's a feeling he'd rather die than admit, and it isn't sadness, it's shame. And shame is the quietest emotion there is. Anger shouts, fear runs. Shame just closes the door and sits down and makes itself very, very still. That look on his face that you've been reading as boredom, as indifference, as "I don't care about you anymore," I want you to read it again. It might be a man who has looked in the mirror and stopped recognizing the person the world used to call on. And then there's the other thing, the one we skip past. By 55, a man has started going to funerals. His father, a brother, the friend he played ball with when they were both 19 and immortal. His own doctor has started using words like manage instead of cure. He's grieving. He's just doing it the only way he was ever shown, which is silently and unsupervised and alone. And grief that's never let out doesn't stay grief. It hardens. It turns into numbness, into a short temper over nothing, into a man who watches television with the volume up too loud so the room can't get quiet enough for him to hear himself think. You are not living with a man who stopped loving you. You may be living with a man who is mourning and doesn't have the equipment. And here's the cruelest part of the whole design, the part that makes so many good marriages go cold in a house where nobody did anything wrong. Men often pull away hardest at the exact moment they care most. Because caring is exposure. Caring means she could see me, and a man who was trained his whole life to be the strong one experiences being truly seen as a kind of danger. So the closer it gets, the more he needs to step outside and stand in the yard for a while, and he could not tell you why if you asked him. Distance isn't always the opposite of love. Sometimes it's the price a man pays for it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and hand you a comfortable answer, because you didn't come here for comfortable, and you're too old to be flattered. Not every silence is innocent. Some silences are a decision being made without you in the room. Some silences are a man who has already left and hasn't done you the courtesy of saying so. And some silences are cruelty that simply learned to be quiet because quiet can't be quoted back at you. So how do you tell the difference? I'll give you 3, and I want you to be honest with yourself as I say them. The first one is, does he come back? Real flooding recedes. The body always comes down eventually. A man who withdraws to survive something will surface again, an hour later, a day later, and he'll come near you. He'll sit closer than he needs to. He'll ask if you ate. He won't explain, because explaining was never in his vocabulary, but he'll return. Withdrawal that never returns is not flooding. That's a different animal. The second one is, do the small things survive? Men of that generation say it with their hands, not their mouths. Your car has gas in it. The light bulb in the hallway got changed, and you never mentioned it was out. He waits at the door until you're inside. That's the language. It's clumsy and it's real. And if it's still running underneath the silence is not what you fear it is. And the third one is the hard one. Does he use it? Because there's a difference between a man who goes quiet and a man who goes quiet at you. One is drowning, the other is steering. One can't speak, the other has discovered that not speaking makes you smaller and has decided he likes it. You know which one lives in your house. You've known for a long time. If you're still with me, this far in, I want to ask you for something. Subscribe to the channel. Stay with us these next few days while we're on this subject, because we're going deeper than this, and I'd rather not do it without you. And do something for me in the comments. Tell me how old you were when you first learned that silence was a language in your house. Not a paragraph, just the age. I read them, and it will tell you more about yourself than you expect. Now come back, because there's a piece of this I've been holding until last, and it's the part that isn't about him at all. It's about you. Here's what the numbers say, and I want you to hear them without flinching. The divorce rate for people over 50 in the United States more than doubled between 1990 and 2010. For couples over 65, it tripled. And of those divorces, roughly 7 out of 10 are filed by the woman. 7 out of 10. Now, why would a woman who stayed for 30 years leave at 62? Because she didn't leave at 62. She left years ago. She just kept setting the table. The research is consistent on this. Married women report lower relationship quality than married men do, and they notice the erosion first. She feels the temperature drop while he still thinks everything is fine. That's not intuition. That's exhaustion with a longer memory. So look at what's really been happening in that house. He went quiet because he never had the words. And she went quiet because she got tired of being the only one who did. 2 people in the same rooms, both alone, both absolutely certain the other one chose it. And in the middle of that, you took a job nobody gave you. You became the translator. You learned to read the set of his shoulders when he came through the door. You learned that a certain kind of long shower meant something went wrong at work. You explained him to the children. You explained him to his own mother. You softened his tone before it reached anyone else's ears. You have been running a live translation of a human being for 3 decades, and you're tired, and nobody ever thanked you, because the whole job was invisible. That was the point of it. I'm going to ask you to put something down. Not him, the job. Because here's the thing about translating for a man who won't speak. As long as you keep doing it, he never has to learn. Every time you guess what he means, you spare him the sentence. Every time you fill his silence with a story kind enough to let you sleep, you take away the one pressure that has ever made a man of that generation open his mouth. So try this instead, and I know it's going to feel like walking into cold water. Ask once, clean. No history, no evidence, no list of dates, not "why don't you ever talk to me," not "I've noticed you've been distant for 3 weeks." Something small enough that he can actually pick it up. Something like, "I've missed you. Where'd you go?" And then, the hard part. Let the silence answer. You'll want to fill it. 40 years of habit will scream at you to fill it. Don't. Because a silence with a woman still calmly in the room is a completely different silence than one with a woman chasing it down the hallway. The first one has space in it. The second one has a chase, and any man who is drowning will always swim away from the person who is swimming at him. Sit in it. Let it get uncomfortable. Let it get long enough to be uncomfortable for him too. That silence is not empty. That's the only room he's ever been offered where he doesn't have to perform. And if, after all of it, he still doesn't come, then you'll have your answer. Not a suspicion, not a theory you've been rehearsing at 3 in the morning. An answer. And an answer, even a terrible one, is lighter than what you've been carrying. For most of my life, I asked the wrong question. I asked, why is he pulling away? And I turned that question over for years, like a stone in my pocket, and it never once told me anything I could use. The question was never, why is he pulling away? The question is, who am I when he does? Because a woman who disappears every time a man goes quiet was never actually there to begin with. She was a reflection, and the terrible thing about being a reflection is that when the light moves, you go out. So go back to that chair by the window. The man sitting in it is not a mystery. He's a 7-year-old who was told to stop, in the body of a man the world stopped calling on, with a heart rate his own doctor would flag, sitting 3 feet away from the only person left alive who might still ask him something gently. And you are not a woman being ignored. You are a woman who has spent 30 years fluent in a language he was never taught to speak. You are allowed to stop translating. Some of you are going to hear this and reach for him tonight. Some of you are going to hear this and finally stop reaching. I'm not going to tell you which one is right. You already know. You've known for a while. You just needed to hear someone say it out loud so it would stop being only yours. He isn't gone. And neither are you. The two of you are sitting on opposite sides of the same quiet, each one waiting to find out who speaks first. It doesn't have to be you, but it can be. If any of this landed somewhere real, subscribe and stay with us. We're on relationships all week, and the next one goes further than this one did. Share this with 5 people, not 50, 5. The 5 you can picture right now, sitting in a quiet house, thinking it's only happening to them. And leave me a comment, not a nice one, a true one. Tell me what you're living with, and tell me what you want us to talk about next, because this channel gets built out of those comments, and I mean that literally. And tonight, when the house goes still, notice something. You're not afraid of the quiet anymore.